Hi and welcome. Welcome to Destined For More online show. I'm your host, Wesley Reece, and I'm excited to bring you a guest expert each week to help midlife women in life and business. My name is Wesley Reece. I'm a success coach, healer, and spiritual mentor for midlife women in business. And in each episode, I get to share with you some wonderful conversations with guest experts that I've had the privilege of getting to know and bring you some value so that you can feel empowered, have a sense of overall well-being and prosperity in your life and business. And I'm so thrilled today that we have Suzan Roberts. She is a relationship recovery and trauma coach, and she helps women really end that toxic relationship cycle and overcome those limiting patterns that are holding them back so that they can create the life that they deserve. And her mission is really to help women take control of their life after abuse, by getting unstuck, healing their trauma, and releasing their fears so that they can fully step into their confidence, raise their self-worth, and create the healthy relationships that they deserve. And I'm so thrilled that she's here with us today, and I can't wait for you to hear from her. So welcome, Suzan.
Thanks. Thank you.
Suzan. Why did I say Suzan? I meant Susan. It's really a pleasure that you're here with us today, and I'm so excited for you to share your genius with everyone about toxic relationships and how that they can show up. But I want to hear from you a little bit first. I want to hear more about you and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And hello, and thank you for having me, Wiz. So what really got me here is really early on a dream of helping. That was really something I wanted very early on, and it is, of course, directly linked to my own upbringing, to having been a child and experienced domestic violence in that context. My father was abusive. There were also mental health issues, as well as addiction problems, gambling addiction mainly. And so the experience of being a child caught up in that kind of toxic cycle was, quite impactful. Thankfully, my mother left that relationship when I was about 11. And what we know with toxic relationships is that it very rarely stops there. So, this was going on for quite a while. It came for me to the point where I felt I didn't want any contact, which I followed through very early on in my life, actually. And that really started for me, I think, the healing process. I have continued to heal. I've seen, people and therapists myself and talked about my own kind of blocks. And so eventually I ended up living in the States for a while, and then now in Australia. I'm originally from Switzerland. And I retrained. So I was working in corporate and just didn't feel it was right. There's a lot of toxicity in that environment as well, I feel, especially corporate. And I ended up working for an extremely narcissistic boss. And I was really unhappy. And a lot of things came back up for me again, and that made me decide no, I've got to change it. So I retrained. So I am now a registered clinical counsellor, and I work with women who have or are experiencing domestic violence. I have been in this particular space for a couple of years. Prior to that, I've worked in addiction and mental health. And it's my absolute passion, and trauma is everywhere. We all experience it, whether it's a small T or a big T trauma, and the world needs healing. We really do. So this is my genius.
Yeah, very important work that you do. And thank you for sharing your story. I think it's important for people to really understand that, one, we all have a story and we all go through something that gets us to where we are today, and we don't have to do it alone. And so I really am grateful for the work that you do. So tell me, you know, you work with a lot of women specifically that are experiencing, whether, like you said, whether it's the small T or the big T. We all know what the big T is, but can you give it some examples of the small T trauma? Because I think it really, just to shed some awareness on what that really is, because we experience it more than we realize sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we hear the word trauma, we automatically kind of jump and think, sexual abuse, domestic violence. We really go to the top bits, so straight away to the big T traumas, PTSD, all of that. But, for example, some of the smaller T traumas can be marriage, getting married. All of a sudden, you go from you just being yourself, into a relationship, living with someone. You might have lived with the person prior, but marriage can be a small T trauma. That loss of identity that might show up for some women and men, I'm sure as well. But I do work with women. Childbirth, absolutely. Again, it's that having to adapt to different circumstances. And trauma doesn't always have to be deeply distressing or disturbing, but it can be, the smaller things, but still kind of cause you to feel maybe helpless, at times, or it might still diminish your sense of self, and kind of navigating that. I see it a lot with women who maybe remarry and become step parents. Again, small T trauma. It can be really, really smoothly, but it isn't always. Having to navigate, not being able to maybe set boundaries there, that can cause a lot of little small T traumas and ruptures in the relationship as well.
Yeah, I work with women in healing their trauma and how it's showing up in their business as well. And I just want to highlight an example, because it can be even the littlest things of, whether it was your mom forgot to pick you up after school when you were in first grade. Or like, I had a client story. She was having troubles with sales conversions in her sales conversations. And we found that it was actually linked to an experience with her father, who really shamed her for her grandmother paying her to help her clean her house. And it created this impact on her that it's carried through her into her midlife, and is showing up in her business. But it's just even little things like that can stick with us. And I just think the awareness around it, there's nothing wrong with getting help, or sharing those things, or even uncovering what that is, and to know that it's safe to do so.
Absolutely.
And there's that importance of that healing piece.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear from you. How does this trauma tend to show up in the women that you work with? How does it show up in their daily lives? So what are the typical patterns, or, even how does it influence their work?
Look, unresolved trauma keeps us stuck. We project, we experience triggers. even if things are going really, really well for a while, it can take really little to kind of really derail it, or we find ourselves all of a sudden overwhelmed, outside the window of tolerance that we can actually cope with daily stresses. And really, that kind of impact, it depends on the severity and our reaction. It can really lead to us burning out or not working at our full capacity, or maybe we even have to take some time off. Very often we don't quite know what it is. We can't name it because a lot of it happens on the subconscious level. So with the women that I work with women who have experienced big T trauma, so domestic violence, and reoccurring as well. But also further down the track where they have done the healing and now they are actually looking into, moving forward. And that's where we also constantly see them getting stuck again. The way it can show up when we have trauma, we kind of tend to only two feelings come up normally. We experience hopelessness and normally anger. Those are the two emotions that show up. When we look at anger, that plays out at times as anxiety. It can also play out, obviously, as aggression, passive aggressiveness, raging, all of that. And then on the hopelessness side, it shows up as depression, for example. When we look further down, underneath it is grief, shame, hurt, feeling not enough, not adequate, all of that. We take that into our daily life. Trauma affects every part. It doesn't just, impact your relationship. It impacts the rest of it. It impacts how you show up at work, how you can show up with your children, if you have children, as a parent, as a sister, as the child towards your parents, as a friend. It really shows up. It shows up differently, but the biggest part is that big T trauma, you lose the sense of safety. And that means you do not trust. You don't trust others. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust the world.
Yeah.
And the impact is huge. And as I said, a trigger it doesn't have to be something massive. It takes very little when we have unresolved trauma for us to be all the way back again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's really important for people to understand if they feel a triggering sensation, it's the greatest indication of something that needs to be resolved, even if they don't know what it is.
Absolutely.
It's the indicator to know, oh my gosh, there's some work that I must need to do. And without that indicator, I always say what you're not aware of controls you, and what you're aware of, you're in control. And just to be able to recognize that, I think is super important. Super important. So I would love to know, with your mission in helping women, what is that message that you want to get out to the world? Like, what is that inner driver that you're called for?
I think the message is really that we can heal, that we really have the capacity to heal, that we really have the answers within ourselves. And it is really learning to tap into this wise mind, the intuition, that gut feeling that very often shows us or tells us, stop, there's something wrong. There's nothing like a chronic illness to tell us you really have trauma. Yeah. Our bodies are amazing. Yeah, they really tell us when something is not right, yet very often we push them aside. Yeah, we don't listen to it. We push red flags aside. And again, it's understandable. It makes sense on a lot of levels when we look at attachment or how we grew up. And also, that the ego looks for the familiarity. However, really being able to get into our bodies again, really listening, learning how we can regulate our own nervous system, learning to really build from the bottom up again, how we can actually reparent ourselves if needed. Yeah. Doing some of that really beautiful and at times incredibly painful inner child work. But we do all have that capacity. And if we all actually work on that, if that message gets out, we actually really stop that intergenerational trauma. We not just heal ourselves, but we actually heal our next generation. It's for our children. But on a bigger picture, it's really the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important for someone to really hear what you just said. It's not just for yourself. It's for your future generations that come after you, and how that can ripple effect to so many people in your influence. And I really, I found in the past that women, they have to be ready to take that next step, but sometimes they may dismiss themselves or their needs, and because they're busy taking care of other people. And the thing is that if they can't take care of themselves, they're not fully able to take care of someone else. And to know that if they do that work for them to heal, then they can show up better for those other people in their life.
Absolutely.
So important. So important.
And it's really the groundwork. It's the foundation for everything that we're building, relationships, friendships, finances, community, your business. It's really the foundation. If we look at a house without its foundation, it crumbles. And that's the same with us. If we don't do that trauma work, it will catch up with us. It will catch up somewhere. And, trauma work really supports your long-term sustainability as a leader, as a coach, as a business owner, as a woman, as a mother, as a, friend. It doesn't just support your financial viability, but also the viability in your business, in your personal life. So it is really so important.
And I just want to press on that point just a little further, because there's so many benefits to doing this work. And I just want our viewers to really understand that by doing this work, the ripple effects of goodness continue to go on. And so it could be like that desire for that business or that life that you want to create, or that that vision that you aspire for. It's not far-fetched. It's not like out of arm's reach. It's within reach. And when you're able to do this work, then you're able to bring more of your truth and your purpose to life, and the fulfillment that comes from that. You can't put a price tag on that.
No. And it's really, when you get to the root cause, then it is, the healing that, healing is ongoing. Because, something will always show up again, But when you start, you're actually equipped with an entire toolbox. Yeah. So you're not going to automatically always just end up in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response.
Right.
You learn to recognize before it happens. You learn to regulate your nervous system before you are at that kind of level. And that's really what we're trying to do. And then you recognize that, and you can actually, kind of use it in your business. You use it in different areas at that point. And the listening to your body again, learning that is the real key.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love for you to share, who is ever watching that wants to take the next step and get in touch with you. How can they find you?
So at this point, you can find me on Facebook, Suzan Roberts. You can also join my group, which I just commenced. It's called the Relationship Recovery Movement, which you can join, where I will, or planning especially as of April, to go a lot more live and really have some beautiful gold nuggets. And there will be a program created later in the year as well. At the moment, I work one-on-one as well. I do one-off kind of sessions, especially with tapping and release. There's going to be some EMDR, which I'm super excited about. So I'm looking forward to be able to offering that as well to my clients. Yeah, so that's probably at the moment how you can find me. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Suzan Roberts. And yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, you might, I don't know if it goes up on the screens as well when we share the video. But yes, so if you do want to reach out, please do so.
Yeah, and I will be posting the links along with this video. So whether it's up there or down, they will be around this video on the appropriate channels. And I also have a link that for the Facebook group as well, so they can get in touch with you with that. And you had shared how that you've got free resources, tools, strategies, and things like that. Absolutely. And I would highly recommend that you follow Suzan, because she posts some great content. Even she's referred to nervous system dysregulation. I know you had posted some value the other day, in regards to that. And so I would encourage you to follow Suzan and get in touch with her and take that next step if the message today resonated with you. So thank you, Suzan. Thank you for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. And I will look forward to our future conversations. So thank you again.
Thank you. And yes, thanks for having me. And I look forward catching up with you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Bye.